Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Mrs Mummypenny Talks. And it is time for episode 2 of my latest season 4. And as you can see, I have a very beautiful guest next to me. I always go the wrong way. So yeah, just to give you a bit of context about this season, because I change it up and do things differently each season. I'm bringing in an expert into every episode of this 12 episode season. And it's a bit of a celebration of my book, The Money Guide to Transform Your Life, which is a year old, it's a very concise chapters about lots of financial subjects. It's only 200 pages. It's not a long book. And I wanted to get Laura in to talk about money mindset, because Laura is an incredible money mindset coach and knows an awful lot about it, way more than me. So yeah, there's a chapter about it in my book, but I just thought it would really bring it to life if I had a proper expert in to talk about it for a while. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, it's really, really good. So Laura and I haven't known each other that long. Well, I've known of you for a while because you've got social, you're mainly on Instagram and TikTok.
Yeah, mainly Instagram and TikTok, yeah. I love a bit of TikTok.
I know you love TikTok. I did follow you the other day because I thought, oh, maybe I should get into TikTok. I'm still trying to decide. But yeah, you've got a good, you've got an Instagram profile and you've got a website. But I suppose the main bit of your business is actually coaching and educating. Is it just women or men and women about money?
It is. I do have like male clients, but I am sort of focused on educating and helping women more so. Like the main way I kind of go about it is kind of, I want to approach it in like a fun, judgment-free, jargon-free way that's really relatable, but helping women specifically kind of like take control and build wealth. So if you are a man, you're obviously more than welcome to come and work with me. But I do mainly aim myself, my audience is mainly women.
Yeah, no, do you know what? I'm the same. Like my audience is mainly women, particularly on social media. I think with my website, it's a bit different. That's more like 50-50 split between men and women. But certainly if I look on Instagram, like I'm about 80-90% women.
It's the same as me.
Yeah. But we've got an age gap between us. So you are quite a bit younger than me. I think we worked out when we met actually in person last week that you could be my child.
It's okay though. You know, there's an age gap, but age is just a number.
But I think it's important for me to have I'd speak particularly with money people who I'm friends with. It's to have people in all different ages, because the perspective you've got is hugely different to the perspective I've got, which is hugely different to somebody in their like 60s. So it's really important to sort of do that cross section.
Yeah, and I think my main sort of like, say like people who I mainly work with or like work with through social media is like women aged like 18 to 30. So it's like Gen Zs, millennials sort of age, people kind of just like me. And it is so different to like when I have conversations with people who, you know, like yourself, who are older, you've got more experience and you're in a different life stage to me. So in that respect, our audiences are the same, with the differences. And I just think it's interesting though, because we will get to that, you know, I'll be going that way. Like I'll be having kids and stuff like that. But I think it's funny because I do it all through Instagram, and obviously you can see like who's following me, and it's like, oh, it's basically just people that are like me. Which is why it's relatable.
Exactly. And that's why we're going off on a tangent here, but that's fine. I think that's why you're so successful on like a channel like Instagram, because you're relatable to your demographic. So that's how you do well on, particularly on Instagram, isn't it? I'm sure the same on TikTok, but
getting there. It's the process.
But we met in real life. Last week. Was it last week?
It was. Last Tuesday it was.
So Headline Money Awards, which is a big sort of Oscars of the financial journalism world. We were there, not nominated, but we were there as guests of Zopa Bank, which is, Zopa's one of, we've both worked with them, but they're a big client of mine that I've I've worked with for maybe like 4 years now. Lots of stuff coming for the remainder of this year and lots of stuff coming next year as well. So yes, we got to sit on their table with them and have dinner and drink a lot of alcohol.
Yeah, and a dance, which was the best. That was the fun part.
It was amazing. It was totally like, it just felt normal.
It did, didn't it? It was so like, you know, you get someone, you're like, oh, I so needed this, like to be around people and to be like, it was such a lovely environment and like such a buzzy vibe. You're like, oh yeah.
Yeah,
it was good.
No, it was amazing. It was amazing. And we bonded over a lot of white wine. So right, let's get into the subject area of money mindset. So how my book is structured is it starts off with the sort of psychological stuff. So I start off with the first chapter, which is like my very personal story of a lot of things have happened in my life, but also how that's related to my financial upbringing. So if you want to hear that, read it, listen to it, go to episode 1 of this season, and I've gone through sort of my story and talked about all the difficult times, which I know it can be a bit of a tough read. You emailed me yesterday saying it was a bit emotional, but
yeah, it definitely was. I was sort of not expecting it to be like, it really got me, and I was like, oh god, like, you know, read just, you know, hearing the words and you're like, oh wow, like it was emotional.
Yeah. And I suppose that's where we need to start then, is the big things that happen to you when you're growing up, and I'm talking like from a young age, from like the age of 7 onwards. 7 is apparently when you're, according to Cambridge University, which is when your money beliefs are formed. So it's really important to, when you're trying to work out your sort of money mindset and beliefs, to go back to that point of your life and think, what was my earliest money memory, and what were the big things that happened in my young years to impact on me.
Yeah, and I think like the fact that I think it overwhelms people when they hear that your money beliefs are set by the age of 7, because they go, well, I didn't have any control over anything at that age, and now I've just got these beliefs. But to kind of like add to that is, yes, they're beliefs and they're formed at that age, but they can be changed at any point. Like, and that I think is the kind of motivating part around working on your money mindset, is knowing that no matter what happens to you and how you feel and think about money now, yes, it's a product of, you know, your childhood. However, you can change the way that manifests in your life now. But yeah, the fact that, like, you know, you think when you're younger, whether your parents, guardians, grandparents, what you're seeing on the telly, what happens at school, you're just like taking in all this information without a filter. Like, your brain is not at that point where it can filter stuff, and it's just kind of getting lodged in your subconscious brain. And that is where, when it stays in there and it comes out through different phrases that you've heard, through different things that you've read, and the stories that you tell yourself that you then think are true because maybe something happened to your parent, or you had one experience of a rich uncle who's, you know, really greedy, so you assume all rich people are greedy. And it's crazy to think that from such a young age we're taking so much in, especially when not everybody can remember everything that happened to them as a child, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? That and what you said there that really rings true is because I've done a lot of sort of therapy and analysis into these sort of particularly money memories in the job I do now. But when I was young, I'd been brought up in like quite a sensible financial way. Like, I knew how to save. I had a job from a young age. I took pleasure in putting money into the Bradford and Bingley Building Society and watched my balance grow. And I suppose I was very self-taught. But then when a catastrophic thing happened at the age of 16, like when my mum died, it completely floored me, and any of that kind of sensible money beliefs or, you know, behaviors I've made up, they just sort of completely went. And by the time I went to university, I just lost the plot. And it's any financial education I'd had, and I had quite a bit by then, not from my parents, but from like jobs and stuff, and, you know, A levels and school. Actually nothing at school, but a little bit in A levels. Yeah, it all just went completely the opposite way. And suddenly I was like addicted to debt, and oh my God, I can have all this free money and I can suddenly own all this shit and not have to pay for it for like months and years. And
yeah, and I think the funny thing, like you say about that, is that you had, before that sort of, you know, traumatic event happened to you, you had a set of practical tools that you learned, right, through, like, say, A levels, through your own experience of work. But it proves that it's not always all about the practical tools, because what then happened is your emotional state, because your life literally got turned upside down, your emotional state changed. And we think that we make our decisions from logic, like from our left side of the brain, but what actually happens is you make from the emotional, the right side. So it's kind of a bit like, I always say to people, when you are on a budget and you know maybe you're trying to clear debt, or you shouldn't be spending a certain amount of money because you've got a budget, logically, you know you can't afford something. But if you're in the moment and you're feeling emotionally triggered, whether that's boredom, loneliness, something traumatic has happened, whatever that is, your emotions are the thing that takes over. And that's what then causes you to overspend, or, you know, all of the impulse buy. And then when it happens and you go, oh, logically, I knew that I shouldn't have done that. Why did I do that? It's because we act from emotion. So if we take it back to what happened to you, you were understandably acting from a place of emotion. So all of that logic and education you had about money kind of went out the window, because it was just a constant state of emotion that you were trying to change.
Yeah. And I also think I was having this discussion yesterday with a friend about control, and it relates to money, but it also relates to food. Actually, quite interesting. I think getting in control of money and getting in control of food and dieting and weight loss, it's all quite a similar sort of mind concept. But so you think that when I was a teenager, all my so my mum and my dad died, so I lost control hugely. I suddenly realized I've got no control over anything happening in my life. Heck, if like my mum and my dad can die when I'm a teenager, then, you know, everything's screwed. So then I think I then control became very important to me. And ultimately, how you spend your money, handing that card over, or what you put in your mouth to eat, controls all back in your power, isn't it? So I think, because I've always had problems with like binge eating and weight throughout my life, I've got in control of it now, I hope. And money as well. So they're just so inextricably linked. I think it is really to do with that huge loss of control and then really trying to gain control back again.
Yeah, like, and I can resonate with that massively, because in a similar way, I had, I guess, kind of the opposite, in the way of my parents were, sorry, mum and dad, awful with money, didn't teach me anything. And I guess it taught me how I didn't want to be with money. So as soon as I started earning money at 16, I went controlling of keeping hold of all of it. Wow. I never spent, I would go out, I'd be really tight and I would hoard my money. So I was saving loads. But I also had a similar situation in regards to my relationship with food. I was really, really controlling with it, like what I ate, what I was putting in my body. So I can relate completely. And it's funny, isn't it? Like you say, it's not, when we think about our money stories and what happened to us throughout our childhood, it's not necessarily what you see is what you then act. It's just that what you see and what happens to you impacts how you then act. So for me, I went the opposite way as my parents, and I taught myself everything I could. I was saving. I did not want to spend. I would always feel guilty if I even bought myself like a pair of shoes because my trainers had a hole in them, you know, and it was like a necessity. Wow, yeah. But it wasn't a direct, it was just that I saw that happening and I was like, oh, this has now impacted me in this way. And it's funny how like it has such an impact, like you say, if we're talking about control, because they're the things that is yours, your money is yours, and your body is yours. Mm-hmm. So they're the two things that nobody else can tell you really what to do. You just go, I'm gonna pick. Yeah. And you kind of sometimes learn the hard way when you've gone through a lot and it's quite emotional. And it's not until you reflect back on it and go, oh, that's why I was acting like that, or oh, that had this impact. Fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It's so fascinating, and I think the premise behind Mrs Mummypenny actually has always been like my tagline. It's like healthy wealth, body and mind, because the three of them are just so inextricably linked, aren't they? Like,
Yeah.
let's say you're in debt, and like, because I've been in debt most of my adult life. I was in debt. Sounds like you weren't, but
That's the opposite.
yeah, no,
Which has its downfalls,
yeah, no, totally,
you know.
totally. But yeah, when you're in that the real sort of low struggles of debt, it hugely impacts your mental health,
Yeah.
and then it impacts on your physical health. So,
Yeah.
but then and I had a bit of a like epiphany. Maybe it was this week or last week so I write my weekly spending diary each week, and I chuck it up on my website, which is very popular. People love reading it, but I feel like I've like got back in better control of my money over the past sort of couple of weeks. I mean, partly to do with summer holidays ending, but I've also gone through this big change with sorting out my mental health and my physical health over the summer as well, and they really are all aligning. So
Yeah.
once you get this in place, then the other things just sort of happen. So you have to
Yeah.
start with this, don't you?
Yeah, and the way I like to say to people is I always say, right, imagine you were buying a house, or you're building a house, sorry, and you've bought like all this gorgeous artwork and a really plush sofa and amazing, all the stuff on the inside, right? If you then built the house on a pile of mud, doesn't matter how many nice things you buy, the house is going to fall down. And I see the money mindset as that foundation. All the stuff that you're then building on top is all the practical tools, the money, the budgeting, the tracking, the learning how to do all that stuff. Still really important to be able to not just survive, but to thrive. But you have to build it on a strong foundation. And that starts with how you feel about money, how you act towards money. And so much of it plays into our emotions. And I read a book, James Clear, Atomic Habits.
Okay.
And in it, he talks about how when we spend money, it's the thrill that you get, the adrenaline you get happens because you want to obviously change your emotional state of play, which is why emotional and impulse spending happens. But then the feelings, like once the item turns up or it kind of drops and you're like, oh, you know, the fun feeling's gone now, like I've spent it. And or if you can learn how to change your emotional state or figure out what your triggers are and work on your mindset so that you're not doing that, you can then learn to spend money in a way that brings you joy, that's not you feeling guilty because it was an impulse spend. And when you take a look at, like you say, your mental health, there's so many like stats and so much research out there about how like poor mental health affects your finances, and if you're having financial difficulties, it can affect your mental health. That when you can start to focus on those, that's like a good place to start.
Yeah.
Because that's, like you say, where you kind of build up, and it impacts your physical, your mental health. It's so interlinked. And I think that the more that we open up the conversation, like I still think that within the financial world, especially for women, it's still really new if you think about it in comparison to like.
And it's really taboo. Like people are shit scared of talking about it.
Yeah, and some of the like conversations I have, whether it was with people through like Instagram or people like me or clients, the beliefs, some of them are like societal beliefs. So like the whole money makes you greedy, you know, we shouldn't talk about money, it's really crude, and all things like that. And it's crazy to think how much of an impact not only your parents or grandparents or whoever have, but also our environment and what we're brought up in. And some people don't even realize it until they start talking about it. And it's like, do you actually believe that? Is that belief helping you? Or is it actually really just holding you back?
Yeah, do you know what? That's fascinating, because I've going back to my sort of evolution of getting a handle on my money. So I worked throughout my career as an accountant, but I've been very bad with money sort of through my adult life. But turning 40, that was a huge it's pretty scary turning 40. And not for everybody, but actually it was worse turning 30 than turning 40. But once I got to 40, I was like, oh my, it's almost like, right, I really need to get my life in order, because it's not too far away that I might want to stop working. And traditionally by the age of 40, you've maybe had your kids by then, and your kids are a little bit older. But I remember doing a blowout for my 40th birthday that I could not afford. I absolutely could not afford. So I went to Las Vegas. It went on a credit card. So 5 grand went on a credit card. I had like a massive party, and I hate big parties of my own. Like, I love going to parties, but not when it's my party. I get scared that nobody will turn up.
Or they'll have a bad time.
Yeah.
Like, oh no.
But I came to fortune on a party, and came back from Las Vegas, and that was that point of, right, I actually need to face up to what's going on. And I was a money blogger at that point, so I'd been writing about money saving. I was more of a how to save money on a day-to-day basis rather than let's look to the future, because I knew I always had this debt. So I added up all the debt, 16 grand at the age of 40. Yeah, wonderful. Because I was surrounded by all these incredible, people that were my colleagues and friends, people like Faith Archer of Much More With Less, and Sarah Williams of the Debt Camel, just to name a couple. But talking to them, because we would meet up and have these really open and honest conversations about money, and I opened up to them about debt. And I remember Sarah saying to me way before I was 40, like, Lynn, you've got too much credit card debt, you're going to struggle to get mortgages and stuff if you don't sort it out. And she sort of planted the seed. And when I faced up to it, I just needed to be in that sort of non-judgmental sort of circle of people who were there, like with that virtual hug of, no, we can help you through this, but you need to change your money mindset, and you, Lynn, you need to get rid of that 16 grand debt. And I did. It took me 2 years. I just a month ago finally paid off my car loan, so I have no debt left. I have
amazing.
Nothing. Not even, I never considered a car loan as consumer debt, but of course it is.
It's gone now. I've paid it.
No, it's gone now. But women don't have those kind of circles. No. So I feel so grateful that I've got people like you and Faith and Sarah in my life to help me. But then I suppose women out there and men watching this and listening to this podcast, just sort of join the Instagram communities and surround yourself with our kind of content, because we will be open and honest about ourselves and how we can help other people.
And I think that, like, when you think about talking about money, like, me and my friends never really used to talk about money. It wasn't until, like, when I saved, so between the ages of like 19 and 22, I saved 15 grand because I wanted to go to drama school. So I was like, I have to put myself through it. My parents can't afford it. Thank you. Yeah, I proper like
at that same point I was in like 10 grand's worth of debt because I just left university.
Which is so common, especially coming from university. Do you know what I mean? Because I get taught this stuff. I didn't go to university. I went straight into work. Now, obviously, I could have spent all of it. But like I say, because of how my parents were, it made me become a massive hoarder with money, which has helped me in some ways, in a lot of ways. But I ended up spending all of that money going traveling, came home and decided to do the same thing again and save money, moved to London. But it was the point when I came back and people started going, how did you manage to go traveling for 8 months at the drop of a hat, just like that? Like, what have you been doing? Because the 2 girls I went with, one of them knew she was going. She'd been planning to go for years, so she'd been saving for ages. And the other girl was a really last minute decision, and she didn't really have much money. She was like, I'm going to have to work out there. But that opened up the conversation. And I was like, well, actually, I was just saving money and I had like 15 grand. And everyone was like, what? How? But I'd been keeping it a secret because I felt ashamed about the fact I was saving.
Wow.
So weird. Like, I would just like, yeah, no, I've got savings.
Because of social norms?
Because of social norms, and because I think maybe, you know, I wasn't buying the latest fashion trends, and I was doing things with my friends. I'd go for dinner, I'd go on holidays, but I wasn't like keeping up with the Joneses. I was not buying the latest fashion. Like, I re-wore the same clothes all the time. So I think there was a bit of embarrassment around the fact I had so much money saved, but maybe wasn't like the most fashionable person. Little things like that, like, you know, when you're like 19, you're a bit like, ooh.
Yeah.
But at that point, that's when I started talking about it online, but talking about it with my friends. And now, I mean, if I'm honest, with my close group of friends, you know, we help each other go for pay rises, and we talk about promotions, and we're like, get your money, girl. And one of the girls was in loads of debt, and I just sat down and helped her work through it all. And then she changed her mindset and she cleared it all. But it's so funny, because it's so taboo, it keeps people so quiet about it. And that makes it so much worse.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, in your situation where you were like, oh my God, I really need to sort this out, some people could have looked at the numbers and gone, oh, 16 grand, well, I'm never going to get out of that, I'm already in a bad place, and carried on. The mindset element is like that motivation of being like, I am in control. I am now, yes, I made mistakes, I'm now doing something about it. I'm going to figure out how I'm going to pay this off and how long it'll take. And you know what? Maybe it'll take 5 years, but I'm the one in control. And that's what I'm aiming for. And that's the mindset shift of knowing that, like, you're the one in control, and you can have all the things you want if you take a bit of ownership and go, actually, do you know what? Yeah, I'm going to do something about this. But that's a massive mindset shift, alongside having a supportive community, definitely.
Yeah. And I will, because people will probably be listening to this thinking, like, how on earth do you pay off? Well, I suppose firstly, how do you save 15 grand in 3 years is almost the same as how did I pay off 16 grand in 2 years. It was a combination of working really, really hard to get my income higher, and also doing the opposite of breaking my costs right back to basics. And I did a few like extreme things, like I didn't buy makeup for a year, and like I love makeup. I didn't buy any clothes for a year. I switched my shopping to like Aldi rather than Tesco. So there were some quite and those kind of things actually made a really big difference. I did 2 no spend months, which were like, I'm not sure if I recommend, I don't know if I recommend no spend months, because I just think you're careful for a month, then you maybe splurge.
It's a bit like restricting and binging with your food. Like, if you restrict too much and you go, oh, it's bad to spend, I'll have a no spend month. And I've done the same thing before. Once I was like, no, I'm going to buy my basics and do nothing else. The next month, I racked up a massive credit card bill that my next month's paycheck had to just clear. So I kind of ruined myself for a couple of months just to try and save a bit. But like, to piggyback off like the back of what you were saying there, for me with the saving, I did the same thing. Like, I think my job that I got when I was 19, my starting salary was about 12 grand. At the time I was like, I'm rich. Like, you know, like a 19-year-old, like, yeah, I'm on a salary now. But we did have an opportunity to make, it was a sales role, so we had an opportunity to like make commission and stuff like that. So same as you, I worked really hard to try and increase my income. And because I was working on computers all day, like I've always loved maths. Like I was really, like you were saying, always loving maths, like always loved numbers. So I was making my own spreadsheets and stuff like that. And I was quite anal with like tracking my spending. So those 3 years, it was like every time I spent anything, it's like, track. And I was like, that for me had a big impact. Also, I was living at home, so I know that helped because I wasn't paying much rent. But it's all the habits, I think, like cultivating a positive mindset in itself is a habit, and having a habit of saving or paying off debt or investing is kind of, I like to see it as like spending money on when it's a saving, investing, it's like spending money on your future self, and changing the like language to be more positive around, not like, oh, I can't do this because I'm, you know, I've got to put aside for an emergency fund, you know, like, because it does sound boring, doesn't it? Like an emergency fund, like, but actually if you're like, oh no, I'm secure in my future financial, you know, my future self, some financial security or whatever, it's changing the way that you view it so that it becomes a positive thing instead of like a chore. And realizing that if you are in that position, like a bit of privilege to be able to say, I can work towards that. That's definitely a mindset, sort of, it's a language thing, I think.
Yeah. And so and once you, it's a different, you're in a different place when you're paying off debt, because you're trying to get back to net zero, I suppose.
Yeah.
But once that debt is paid off, then you get into, right, now I need to build my emergency fund. Once you've got your emergency fund, you can then start to like invest, put money into pension. But I've totally changed how I feel about these kind of, I mean, I'm really into wealth building now and protecting my future self, but I've just got it cemented in my mind that I have to have at least £10,000 in my emergency fund. That's just the way it is. Like, I don't see it as a restriction. I just see it as a freedom, that if something serious happens, and that's like, I don't know, I needed to replace the dishwasher. Actually, a dishwasher probably isn't that serious. Or like the car needed 4 new tires or things like that. Then that's exactly what the emergency fund is for. And I know it's just sat there in a cash account earning bugger all interest, but if I need £5,000 this minute, I've got it sat there. And the power and the positiveness of how that feels in your head is huge. But once you get beyond that emergency fund, and like I put money into a stocks and shares ISA each month, and I have this like goal regarding my pension of how much I need to put into my pension each year, because I want to retire. I want to be financially independent. I don't want to use that word retire, by a certain age. Then I've just got all these goals in place, and life's just flowing towards them because I'm so set. I mean, there's flexibility there. Like, I probably won't be able to put the £12,000 I intended to put into my pension this year, because I'm moving house and stuff, like things come along which change your plan a little bit. But it's really important to have those goals in place as well.
And I think like the goal side of it is so important, because I speak to a lot of people who go, oh well, I don't have anything to save for, and it's like, okay, so if you take it back, you might think you not have anything to save for. However, emergency fund, and you said obviously about it just sitting in cash, not earning any interest, but the interest that you're losing by not investing it is the peace of mind that you gain knowing you have immediate access to that, which is priceless, right? Having it, knowing you've got that in case. So you've kind of got that bit. And then also I think it's so easy, especially because of social media and consumerism, marketing, it is so easy to fall into the trap of wanting everything now and being like, yeah, but I could have this now. Like, oh, I could, and falling into that, like, trap of just buying, spending all of your money, having a great time, of course, but getting maybe 5-10 years down the line and going, oh, loads of people around me are doing big things that cost money. And I can't do those things because I'm now starting from scratch. Whereas it's kind of like you have to say, right, I know at some point I'm probably going to want to potentially maybe buy a house or quit my job or go traveling, like something big that is going to cost money. It's okay if the goal changes. If you say, right, I'm going to save 20 grand for a house, and then you get 5 years down the line and you're like, I don't want to buy a house, I want to go live in a boat in Bali, you got the money there. But it's like working towards that. And I think that having goals, I think people get scared of making financial goals because sometimes they feel too out of reach. So if you're starting at zero, or if you have like consumer debt and your goal is to have £5,000 saved for whatever, it feels so far away that it then gets ignored altogether. And it's like reminding yourself that you're like in it for the long haul. You're like, you can, because I'm not somebody like, I hate all of the cut back on your coffees just so that you can afford a house. Like, it's bullshit. But I think you should spend money on the things that bring you joy now. If you can get aligned with your financial values and your financial goals, when you're spending, you can feel more comfortable with your spending because you know that you're also saving towards the future, as opposed to it only being one or the other. Like, I was definitely, like I said, more of a saver, and I was like, oh, got all this money in my savings, but I wasn't enjoying my money in the now. And I was like, why am I working so hard to not give myself...
You'd gone just too far that way.
And then if you look at it on the spending side and you go, oh no, YOLO, let's just spend all my money now. Great, you're having a good time, you're making loads of memories. However, what's going to happen in 5-10 years time when you go, oh, I'm I don't have any money.
Yeah.
And it's just thinking like about, I think financial goals are really important to, especially for your mindset, to help you know, to give you some direction and some willpower when it's emotional spending and stuff like that.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it, how far in the future you look? Because so if I think back to when I was your age, so you're 27, 28, 27.
27, 28 next month.
So when I was 27, I was child free. I was working for Tesco's as an accountant, right? I was earning good money. I was on maybe about 50 grand a year. But I was living for the moment. So think that it wasn't that long before that my parents had died. So I was still in this YOLO life of, I don't care. I am going to earn loads of money and I'm going to spend it, and I'm going to have the best holidays and the best designer bags and all this kind of. My designer handbag collection is ridiculous. Although I've sold some of it, but but I opted out of my pension. I didn't. I was investing some money, but like 25 quid a month into a stocks and shares ISA. I literally just lived for my 20s. Retirement was too far away. So when you are your age, particularly when you've had parents who have died, like my mum died when she was 58 and my dad died at 63. So they did not experience their retirement. So all I had in my head was, I don't care. I'm just going to spend this money because I'm going to die. And
why not spend it now? Why you can't take it when you go type thing.
But it's, and 30s were just full of kids and pregnancy and little children. So your mind is really not on money. For me,
baby brain.
But then at 40 it literally was like, oh my gosh, the future is not that far away. But so and that's almost like the message that I want to relay down the line to people like you, which I mean obviously you know it anyway, but people in their 20s, is do think about the future. And like if you've got and you're working and you've got you will have a pension scheme at work, please don't opt out of it. Like contribute to it. Your employer will also contribute money. There's tax benefits. It's not going to cost you that much money in your 20s, but by the time you're in your 40s and your 50s, it will potentially be worth quite a lot of money because of compounding and investing. And
I think
it's financial mistake.
I think that funnily enough, if we like bring that round to mindset, what happens is, you know, a negative belief around money is thinking that your future right now isn't your responsibility. And when you link it to money, kind of having a mindset of like, oh, I don't need to worry about it right now, thinking it will just take care of itself. And like when you unpick that, it's kind of like trying to understand where that came from. So in your instance, it was because, you know, you had the experience of losing two parents from, you know, they were both young, and you go, well, they didn't get to have their retirement or their pension, so why should I? That's my experience, that's my truth. And I think for a lot of people it falls into, maybe they see their parents working really hard for a really like into their older age, and they just assume that that's what they'll do, so they don't think that there's another way, and they fall into this trap of like, oh well, I'll just work and I'll just make money, as opposed to going, right, what is it that I want and how can I make that happen for me? And connecting kind of like your goals with the present, but to that idea. And I think because money is so emotional, if your mindset is a bit like on the negative side towards saving and investing and planning for the future, because not everybody's a planner, right? There's this thing called the money habitudes, and you can fall into like one of 5 categories. So it's like security, I can't remember all of them: security, planning, spontaneity, what's the word if you're like being showy, basically, like to have nice things, materialism, and then another one. And it talks about like, so for me, I fall into security and planning, because for me, that is what money is. It really is like a security blanket. Whereas for some people, they don't want to sit down and look at the numbers, because they're like, man, they want to be able to just know that they can just jump out and go do something at the last minute. For some people, it's about having a really nice house and being able to show their money. And like, that links to your mindset, because you can start to understand how you feel about money based on that. And then that affects the way that you then plan for the future. If you're a planner, great, because you know you're going to plan for the future, and you might need to work on how to enjoy your money now, which was me. Whereas if you're not a planner and you have more of this sort of like spontaneous energy towards money, then it's about finding a way to make it work so that you can still plan for the future, but within your own, like, it's not a category, but do you know what I mean, like money personality.
And that's where it comes back to what you do as your job then. So you actually work with, so maybe explain the process you go through if somebody comes to you, like, because I think we are, as us as individuals, we're almost like two different extremes of the scale. So and it's not as we sort of talked about before we started recording, but it's not a situation of putting you into a certain like box of what type of money mindset you are. But just explain how you'd work with somebody. Yeah,
the habitude report is more something that's just sort of interesting for you to understand. But when it comes to your mindset, like we were saying, weren't we, like, you're all individuals. So everybody's going to have had different experiences and a relationship with money and different beliefs, really individualistic to your environment, how you were brought up and how that manifests as an adult. So when I work with people, I take a very holistic approach, and I take into account that we still need the practical. But the aim is to get people to a point where they have a positive relationship with money, and uncovering any blocks or beliefs within their money story and memories that's stopping them from doing what they want. So it's about understanding what that individual's desires actually are in life, because everybody is different. Some people do want a house and kids, some people do want to have no kids and travel around, everybody's different. So it's about finding what is holding them back from having that life that they actually want, and how that relates to their thoughts and their feelings. And like, I view like relationship with money as like a relationship as you would have with a person. Like, if you have a toxic relationship, it's not going to serve you. If you're not being really scrappy about it or not want to talk to it, or it gets, it's not going to help you. You want it really like reciprocal, very healthy. But the mindset and relationship and emotional element of money gets looked over because it seems like such a practical thing. And when you speak to people about money, they're like numbers, spreadsheets, budgets. And because not everybody is a numbers person, they think that then money's not for them that they think that they can't be in control of it. So when I work with people, it's very holistic and understanding, like, what is it that's holding you back? What is it that that you believe around money? What is it that you can change to make positive changes towards how you handle your money? And I've had some people make amazing transformations where they've had little mini epiphanies where they've not connected what happened, what they saw as a child, to what's happened to them now, or how they act with money now. And when they put the two together, they're like, oh my God, I didn't even realize. And it's like uncovering that. It's it's fascinating. And I think that once you then start to uncover that, and you get rid of the negativity, and you change your language, and you start to use all these different sort of money mindset tools that help you get a better relationship, then you can implement the practical stuff, and you put in simple systems that work for you, the budgeting, the saving, the automation, whatever it is.
But it goes back to, you've got to sort this out first.
Totally. And the thing is, like, our mindset is actually like a combination of like our sense of identity about ourselves and our money, our beliefs in money and in our business, how we value our time, recognizing the value that we actually have to offer, our self-talk and our sense of self-worth. And I think especially people who have debt, they attach their sense of self-worth to their money, right? So if they feel, that's why people feel ashamed and don't talk about it. And I am such a big advocate for being like, your net worth, no matter whether it's high or low, is in no relation to you as an individual. It's just something that's in your life, and that you can learn to change.
I'm not sure I can get my head around that. I've got a big thing about net worth and how it relates to me as a person.
But I think that what I mean is, like, if you have a higher net worth, that doesn't make you a better of a person than somebody who's got a lower net worth. But you're smiling because I think that you think that maybe it does. that's a belief that's been installed in me from my parents and nature nurture growing up as, right? Totally, because some people are completely in that state. Some people go sometimes the other way and they go, no, I don't care about money at all. Like it's just made up, and why do I need money? But that in itself is a negative belief, because we live in a capitalist society that we need money, and it's okay to want money. But it's about, I'm a big advocate of being like, just because you're in debt, that's got no, it's on your sense of self-worth. We're taught to be ashamed about debt because of that. And I have to work on it myself, knowing that the way I live my life and the way I balance my own mental health and my work-life balance, and not always just assuming, like you say, the more money you get, the better life will be. However, we have to acknowledge that the more money you have, the more good you can do in the world, the more opportunities you have. So I'm all for having more money, like bring it on. It's just around the way we attach it to our sense of self-worth. I think one to be aware of.
Yeah, this is like a little mini therapy session of getting here.
Because if something happened, God forbid, I don't know, what, and you ended up back at zero, let's say you had to spend all your savings or something, that would, if you have a belief that you're more of a person when you've got a higher net worth, when that drops down, that's going to change how you feel about yourself, which then impacts the way that you might save or go out into the world. And but actually you're just having to start from zero again. So it's like that, it's a mindset thing.
Yeah. Amazing. So what the people that you coach then, is it just a real sort of mixture of life? So you'll get some people who are in debt and need help getting out of debt, or maybe you've got some people who are in like a decent position and they want to build a plan, an investing plan or a pension plan for the future. Is it a bit of everything?
It's a bit of everything. So I've worked with people who've had debt, and we've done the practical element of going, look, this is how long it'll take you to pay off. We map it all out. Here's a date that you're working towards. But when the practical's done, we're working through the motivation and the mindset towards why they were in debt, how to get out of debt and how to stay out of debt, because usually you get out of debt, but because you've not changed your mindset, you're back in it straight away. So when we work together, it's the getting that foundation to build up from. But yeah, then I've got some people in amazing positions who have got really good jobs, maybe making a lot of money, but feel that either acknowledge that they have a poor relationship with money, and it can be quite therapy, like it's like a therapy session sometimes, because you're really getting deep, we're going in. And then there are some people who are just a bit like, I just want to be a bit better with money. But as we're going through the sessions, all this stuff comes up around, they have memories. Oh God, I forgot this happened to me when I was this age, and that made me actually think this, and beliefs come out, and I'll challenge them and be like, is that what you actually believe? Is that what you want to believe? Do you think that's actually helping, and how can we go about changing that? And sometimes the smallest things have such a massive impact.
Oh my God,
it's crazy. Like even just the awareness of something and going, oh, I didn't realize I actually believed that, is enough to then trigger a big change.
I did a little bit of, so I'm a fan of hypnotherapy, and I use hypnotherapy for lots of things in my life, but sort of like goal setting and my physical health. So I've actually used it to help with weight loss. I did some timeline therapy as part of one of my hypnotherapy sessions about 5 years ago, and we actually worked out that my weight issues, so I was overweight my entire life till I was about 40, and that's when I sort of sorted it out. It all went back to 2 boys at school when we were 11 telling me I was fat, and I was not fat when I was 11. I was a perfectly normal child, but it's like and it was just that seemingly tiny incident, which probably happens all the time to kids at school, but that was what stuck in my mind, and then what sort of made me overeat and use food as an unhealthy sort of coping mechanism till I actually had the therapy to sort it out. So it was just one event. It's crazy.
It's crazy when you like map it back and you get deep, and then you realize a pivotal moment that when you're younger, it might have seemed obviously big to you at the time, but in the grand scheme of your life, you think, oh, it was just a comment. words have so much weight, and this is a part of like my practice is around understanding the language you're using, because sometimes we use a lot of phrases, so going a bit of sidetrack here, but we use phrases that we accidentally or subconsciously don't really realize we're saying, but it's just a habit. So when you're like, oh, I'm so poor at the moment, or like, I'll never get out of debt, or I'm so bad with money. They're such throwaway comments, but the thoughts and the words that we use become our actions, and our actions become our life. So it is all a big thing. But going back to the importance of words, like that one phrase that was said to you when you were younger, the massive impact it had. And like I worked with a girl recently, and she was in a lot of debt. And we were we were getting into understanding why, and she realized that basically her parents had a lot of money, and because her parents always bailed her out, her belief was that if she gets what we figured out was if she gets in any trouble, her parents are always going to bail her out. She didn't realize that at the time, but it was one thing that her parent had said to her about that, and she was like, that has stayed with me, and it means that in the moment when I'm emotional spending, I know that I've got a safety blanket.
Wow.
And it was just that little thing that we then learned about financial independence and taking control that then helped her make changes. But it's just the little things about what I said, and it's mental. But that's a part of like the work that I do. I do it with I do work with people one-to-one. I'm going to be bringing out a sort of a group program soon, hopefully, which is obviously more cost effective for people. And it's just in a group setting. And it's about uncovering those like money stories and money memories and understanding, because I love journaling. I think it's one of such a helpful tool, because when you just write, nobody's going to be looking in your journal. You can just pick a prompt.
Just pour it out of your mind, right?
You just pour it out. And sometimes some of the stuff that comes out, like, it's crazy. So there's a lot of, like journaling is a really good way to help you work through mindset, stuff, even just not even money ones, just in general. And like uncovering maybe little bits, because things change along the way. So my mindset has changed massively since I started earning money. But now that I'm, setting up my own business and running my own business, I have a belief that, and this comes down to my dad, who I saw working really hard. He would 6 days a week, 7 till 7, out all the time, but we still didn't have a lot of money. Obviously, my dad wasn't very good at money management, and I've got 3 brothers and sisters, so we're a big family.
Yeah.
But that was my view of working. So when I'd kind of worked through personal like beliefs, when it's now started to filter into my business, I'm working through mindset things around how like hard work and making money. And it's something little, but it's just that stemmed down from my parents and what I saw in my environment. And it's about like, I figured that out through journaling. I was like, oh, I just put 2 and 2 together.
That's amazing.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, no, I do love a bit of journaling. And another habit that I've formed, but then like you, I do love like spreadsheets and stuff, is no fail on a Monday morning. I write my spending diary, as in I go back through my Amex, my First Direct, my Starling, the 3 sort of main tools I use for spending. And I write down everything I've spent. I categorize it into, what was eating out, what was fun spending, what was bills, and then I actually then write my spending diary that goes on my website. But it's such a cathartic process of creating that spreadsheet. Creating the spreadsheet, to be honest, takes me like 10 minutes on a Monday morning, but it's just a habit now. I've been doing it since the beginning of lockdown. It's and I know it's not for everyone, so it doesn't have to be a spreadsheet. It can just be in a notebook, whatever. Just
I think keeping a money diary
out of your head
and seeing it and going, thinking about it. Because a lot of the time when I start working with people, we will talk about spending and tracking, and we'll talk about where their money's going and what they mainly spend money on and things like that. And a lot of people don't know. They go, I couldn't really tell you how much I spend on X, Y, and Z. And it's like, okay, that's something that we need to look at. And it can be quite like eye-opening, because you go, God, when I actually add that all up, I didn't realize that I was spending X amount on, whatever it was. And I had a client actually who really, we were talking about financial values. And I think it's really important to spend in alignment with your values. So if you are really interested in health, and you can spend more on organic food, but just cut back on spending on things that don't bring you joy. So making sure that your spending's aligning with that, because it gives you this bit of freedom about taking control and going, I'm getting to spend my money in the way that I like. But what was happening was, she said that she valued health. When we looked through her spending, but she was like, it's organic food's too expensive. But when we went going through her spending, she was spending heaps of money on really convenient food. When she added it up, she was like, actually, I could do a better weekly shop in like a farm shop. But it was only by looking at it and going through, and then acknowledging that mindset of allowing yourself to spend that kind of money, which she was already spending in other places, on the thing that she valued, which was interesting.
No, that's I've never, I've not actually thought of it like that. But and I will say things like, the best money I will spend is like 25 quid on my cleaner, because I hate cleaning. I love having a cleaner come in, and I would never regret spending that money. Likewise with a really lovely massage every like 6 weeks. I do not resent spending the money at all. But the money I spend on eating out and maybe like a Deliveroo each week, which at the moment I'm spending like at least 100 quid a week, that does fill me with regret, and because it's too much on something that doesn't bring me sort of what's aligned to my values. And
I think if you can like I remember doing my own sort of like financial value exercise and understanding what it was that I valued and what I wanted to spend money and didn't. And I think I can't remember who it is, I think it's like Rami Sethi, the American guy. He talks about this thing called money dials, and your money dial could be like so yours could be convenience, for example, with the cleaner, it could be health, it could be education, it could be anything. You can turn your money dials up in certain areas and turn it down in other areas, because we all spend our money differently. But that's essentially the same as like your financial values and understanding where you actually want your money to go. And if you look at your spending, which you need to track first to know, you go, am I actually happy with where my money's going? Because I'm the one in control of this. If you're not happy with the Deliveroo, and I do the same thing sometimes, sometimes I'll spend it and I go, why did I actually do that? Right, it's because I didn't leave myself enough time, or I didn't do a big enough food shop, or I was tired. And it's like weighing it up in alignment with your values. And I think that when you can do that alongside your track, like your spending, it's a game changer.
Wow, this is amazing. So many like top tips from this conversation that I think will be invaluable to people. I think it's amazing what you do, and it's very, likewise with what you do and what I do. I think the great thing about it is we are making huge differences to people's lives, like huge differences. And when I worked in the corporate world, I was not making a change to like Tesco customers' lives. I was just moving money from one pot to another for a massive company and making money for shareholders. Like the jobs we're doing now are actually making a difference to so many people's lives, and it's hugely I just love it.
I feel you, because the job that I had like since I was like 18, like get along really well with my boss, like we have a really good relationship, but I did have that feeling of like, all I'm doing is helping companies make more money for a bit of money myself. And then falling into kind of like the financial side of things, it's crazy to think, and I don't know if you sometimes get this, but sometimes I forget, and not in a big-headed way, but I forget how much I know because I'm in the industry. So we'll be talking about it, we'll be having these conversations, and you might give a tip or say something to somebody and they're like, oh my God, I never thought to do that. And you're like, oh,
and it will be
of course,
really simple. Literally, like one of my favorite things I say to people is carve out say 2 or 3 hours of time in your diary and go through all your bills. So get a better deal for your broadband, your energy, your mobile phone, your insurance, and you've spent 2 hours doing that, and I bet you will save about £1,000 over a year. When are you ever going to earn £1,000 in 2 hours? People
so
are like,
true.
oh my God, I know. And you take it for granted. It's just stuff we preach every day, isn't it?
And I think like when I have a similar one, when I talk about saving, that's how I started talking about my saving journey, talk about paying yourself first. And the amount of conversations, I go, how much you save, or how much are you trying to save? And they go, oh, we'll just save what's left over. And I go, right, let's flip it on its head. Think about what you want to save first. Go, right, that's going away in my savings. Even if it is just £10, but you're the one making the choice, you move it on payday, it's gone, and you spend what is left over. Because your brain will always spend what you have. It'll go, oh, you can afford that, because you don't have to keep doing all the mental maths. And that's one big tip I know that people go, oh my God, I never thought about doing it that way around. And it feels so small because maybe we've been doing it for a long time. It makes such a big difference. And it's so nice to be able to, like you say, like have those conversations and do those things and help people, especially when we're in a time like we are right now, where, financial overwhelm and stress has increased massively for people.
Yeah. Amazing. Okay, so I think we've been talking for a very long time. This is going to be a really long podcast, but I just didn't want it to end, because there was nugget after nugget of
it was good.
Amazing conversation. So if people want to find you, where do they go?
So you can find me mainly on my Instagram, but I also have a website and a TikTok and a YouTube, and they're literally all just under Laura Ann Moore.
Oh, so you've got Laura Ann Moore for all of it? Yeah,
pretty much. So my Instagram is Laura_Ann_Moore, but everything else is just Laura Ann Moore. So find me on any of my socials. You can slide into my DMs if you want. And I'm soon going to be reopening up my books for coaching. There'll be a group coaching course coming at some point soon, and I have heaps of free content, like I say, YouTube and Instagram, so and my blog. So hopefully there'll be something for you.
What was I going to say? Your group coaching thing, where will that be sitting? What platform are you using?
I haven't yet decided. So I want to deliver it as like live Zooms, I think, that we do as a group. And then there's exercises and stuff like that. And I've done courses like that before, where we've done it through like Facebook or through like Zoom. So I'm undecided at the moment. I don't know what's the best one yet for bringing that community together, so that people have got that. I'm thinking it's probably going to be like a Facebook group with support through, with like Zoom links and stuff like that.
Group.
But it will cover like working on your money mindset, understanding like all different exercises around how to improve your relationship with money, and then how to implement that, and how to have like the practical tools in place to get those sort of financial foundation, but to feel good about it. And ways to work through that. So that hopefully will be in the new year.
Oh, that's very exciting. Very exciting to have a plan.
It's exciting, because I was
going to say, I'm not very good at planning my business too far in the future, but I need to.
I mean, it's the one thing that I've said I was going to do for ages, because I've had I do all my all my content online, which I love making. Started obviously working one-to-one. Not everybody can afford one-to-one, and not everybody needs that direct. And I really am passionate about. Totally, like I'm passionate about bringing it to people and to make it affordable and accessible. So I've got so many different ideas of things that will be coming out that are at all different levels, where you can still get that support to work through what you need to work through, basically.
Oh, amazing. I love what you do, and
thank you.
We were obviously brought together for a reason on that sofa table.
Fateful day.
And, over all the white wine. So thanks so much for joining me on the money mindset episode of Mrs Mummypenny Talks. My book, buy it. It's $12.99 if you buy it from my website. I will sign it and I will post it out to you. You can get it on Amazon, obviously, but I make a lot less money if you buy it from Amazon, so don't
buy it from her website.
Buy it from my website. And absolutely, like, go follow Laura on Instagram or TikTok.
TikTok. If that's your thing. Thank you for having me.
It's
been great.
Coming on. It's been really good.
Thank you.
Bye. Don't go yet though.